Working in the Capital. I'm your host, Susan Haywood. Working in the Capital is a weekly call-in show where we discuss the hot issues in human resource management affecting those of us in the National Capital Region. It is a call-in show, so please share your questions with us at 613-728-1001. On today's show, we're going to be discussing how to get your first job out of school. And I have with me two guests. Later in the show, we'll be talking to Rob Henderson, Executive Director of BioTalent Canada. But first, I'm joined by Mike DAmico. Mike is the President of Strategic Consulting Canada and has numerous years of experience on both as an as a Vice President of Human Resources with local technology firms and also as a consultant providing advice to similar-sized firms. So Mike, what are your thoughts on how things have changed for new graduates and in terms of overcoming the barrier between trying to get your first job without experience and yet not having any experience and how to get your first job?
Well, I think that's always been an age-old question that a lot of young people entering the workforce have faced. Some of the changes are it's certainly a buyer's market these days. We've had a challenging economy and there may not be that many jobs compared to what we've seen in the past. Another thing that you and I were talking about earlier was that more and more young people are not working or gaining any experience prior to starting their post-high school schooling.
That's a great point. So before the show, Mike and I were actually talking about our own experiences, and I was saying that I was actually 8 when I got my first job, delivering Sears catalogs to the neighborhood, and you were sharing your own stories.
Yeah, I cut lawns and then got a paper route, and then I worked at McDonald's from the time I was 15 right through when I graduated university.
Absolutely. And for us, I think in our generation, that was the norm. I know most of my friends in university worked. You had either a job at the mall. I myself bartended through university. I mean, that was just the way to pay the bills. And times have changed. Not that university is not expensive, but there's a lot more parental support, a lot more support programs, and be it good or bad, students are graduating with a lot more debt than they used to.
Yeah, so one of the results of that is as an employer, you often get resumes from new grads that, to be blunt, are very thin when it comes to having any kind of experience that can help you gauge, would this be a good hire for my position?
Mm-hmm. Now, what are your thoughts on transferable skills? I know from my experience, I've always really liked to hire varsity athletes because I find they have that leadership experience, the teamwork experience, and they bring a lot of great things to the workplace. But what are your thoughts on?
Well, I certainly agree with that one. I've always been in sports my whole life, but there's a lot of competencies and skills that you develop. Team as you said, teamwork, leadership, taking responsibility, and that's an example of where you can get things and transferable skills and experiences in many ways, and what you want to do is reflect those on your resume so that a potential employer can see, okay, some of the competencies I'm looking for, this person's likely to have.
Right. So what about people who weren't involved in team sports? I mean, I assume the same holds true for organizations, if maybe a school newspaper, anything like that. You really want to see something other than just attending class.
That's right, and there's a lot of ways that you can get things on your resume other than having worked in a job before. Many volunteer opportunities. Right. You can volunteer for a association, depending on what your particular interest or career focus is. There's all kinds of associations that are looking for volunteers. Both of you and I volunteer for local HR associations here in Ottawa, and actually that's how we met each other. So volunteering for associations, opportunities for internship positions or volunteer jobs. As an employer, I've had people contact me saying, I will work for free for the summer.
Right.
Just to gain some experience. You may be under-resourced and you can use an extra hand around the office when people are on vacations. It will give me an opportunity to add to my resume to say I've worked in an office environment for the summer.
And I know, likewise, I've taken advantage of those offers, and I assume you have as well when people have made those offers. Yeah, it is something that employers do consider.
And then on your resume, you've got some real work experience that you can put on there.
Not to mention a real working reference.
That's right.
Someone who's seen you in a work environment. Absolutely. What about the kinds of things you should highlight on a resume in your view? So I'm a new graduate. Maybe I wasn't involved in any team sports, or I wasn't involved in any particular activities at my college or university. But other than going through the list of what subjects I took, what kinds of things should I put on my resume?
What you want to try to do is highlight competencies that you've been able to use in the past or develop,
Right.
and experiences that you've had that are somewhat related to the job that you're looking for. Really, your resume is to help you try to get your foot in the door.
Right.
You know, and an employer is going to get a lot of resumes, especially, as I said, it's a buyer's market right now.
Unfortunately.
You know, recently when I've been on the employer side of things, hiring, if you post a job, you're very easily likely to get 50 to 100 people apply
Right.
quite quickly. And you need to be able to have your resume draw enough attention that you're going to make that short list of, you know, maybe 5 to 10 people that they're going to pass along, the HR department's going to pass along to the hiring manager. One of the things that is there for you to utilize is the job posting. The employer is actually telling you what they're looking for in that job posting. So what you want to do is look at the posting and identify what are the skills they're looking for, what are the competencies they're looking for, and call upon things that you've done in your past where you can highlight how you've applied those. Absolutely. So as I said, maybe you coached a team, and that's a way you can call out leadership skills that you've had, or communication skills if they're saying they want somebody who's a strong communicator.
Right.
So they're really giving you a real good tool to work from when you see a job posting, because they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. And getting hired is really a sales situation. You're trying to sell yourself to the buyer, and in this case, the buyer's telling you what they want to buy.
Great advice. Going along those lines, so the resume is just one way for you to try to sell yourself to the buyer, the employer. What are some other techniques? What do you think about networking for new graduates?
Yeah, that's a buzzword that we've all heard,
Absolutely.
and networking is really about establishing relationships, making contact with people, because so many jobs nowadays are not posted on a
Right.
website or listed on in the newspaper or on a job board or whatever.
Absolutely.
Many jobs, it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And in this case, networking is about improving your probability that you will be in the right place at the right time. The more people you know and the more people you talk to and let them know about yourself, you know, maybe they don't have a job right then, but maybe they will later, or maybe they know of somebody. And I've got a really good example. After I found out I was going to be coming on the show with you, I got an email from a friend of mine announcing he had a new email address.
Oh, okay.
So I replied to him and said, did you get a new job? And he says, yeah, I'm starting a new job next week. The way he got the job, he volunteers as a volunteer on a local baseball association.
Right.
One of the coaches in his league was so impressed with seeing how he handled himself in that role, he approached him and said, I'm looking to hire a new person for my company. Would you be interested? So it was all about the network. This job never got posted. He never applied for it. He never would have known about it. But through his network and a connection he'd made, somebody was able to be impressed with him, and he got that job.
Fantastic. I mean, and that can happen to anyone.
And as I said, so many jobs, that's how they get filled.
That's true.
It's through a connection of somebody you know or somebody they know who knows somebody who needs somebody and hears that you're looking for something. So networking is an invaluable tool for somebody when you're looking for a job.
What about sort of taking that in a modern sense and looking at it in terms of social media and connecting with employers via things like LinkedIn? Do you still think that's appropriate for a new grad?
Absolutely. You know, again, it's about improving the probabilities that you will be in that right place at that right time.
Absolutely.
And LinkedIn is an excellent tool to get your profile out there, to make connections with people. Again, it's a networking tool. It's an opportunity for you to showcase some of the experiences that you do have.
Definitely.
More and more, social media is a tool that employers are using to hire people. And if you're not findable through those tools or reachable through those tools, you may get missed.
And I think it's also a point of not just being findable, but what it is that employers find. I mean, you know, to put it simply, I want to know if you scored the winning goal in the hockey game, but I don't want to know what you did after. And
That's
as an
right.
employer, looking at Facebook, and you know, we've talked about bathing suit shots on Facebook and other sort of employer nightmares is not what you want to see.
Yeah, and more employers are actually proactively looking at social media to do background checks on people. You know, you've seen some media high headlines lately about is an employer entitled to get your Facebook password from you? Because some of them ask. You know, it's an opportunity. They're doing their due diligence to understand, is this person going to be a good fit for my company? Are they coming as advertised? Are they going to be somebody who's going to help my company, or could they potentially be a negative if I bring them in.
Absolutely.
And social media provides another vehicle for them to do that due diligence.
So it's very important to make sure you have your privacy settings set appropriately.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a job, have your
careful
settings
what you
set,
post,
and just think about the fact that what you're putting out there could be going to this person who you're about to contact to hire you. So would you want them to be seeing and reading what you're putting out there?
Absolutely, good advice. We talked about the things to highlight on a resume that, as a new grad, it might be a little bit thin, that it's mostly academic in terms of the education that you do have and not a great deal of experience. But assuming that you do get through the filter and that your resume has some merit and get called for an interview, what are your thoughts on the kinds of ways that these graduates can share their experience during an interview?
So again, what you want to do is you're now in the sales situation. You want to show this buyer that you have what they're looking to buy.
Right.
And you should have some good clues about what that is through the job posting or the position profile that hopefully you've seen, but the fact that you've gotten into an interview now. And you want to be able to show them that you've got what they're trying to buy. So if they're looking for somebody with strong communication skills, call on examples of where you've been able to demonstrate good communication skills, be it through public speaking experience you've had, or writing experience you've had, or any awards you may have won, or things where you can show, yes, I've got really good, strong communication skills.
Absolutely.
Organizational skills. Maybe they need somebody who pays attention to detail and has good organizational skills. What experiences or examples can you give where you've done things in the past? And we all have.
Absolutely.
It may not be in a comparable job.
No.
But through volunteer roles, through teams, through maybe groups you were in at school, maybe you were on the yearbook committee or committees or things like that. All of these things are life experiences that are going to be potentially relevant to the job, and you want to be able to call those out and highlight those.
Absolutely, and I think that it almost gets coupled with not just don't talk about what subjects that you took in school, but the things that you accomplished in those courses. Like you said, public speaking. Perhaps you've never done formal public speaking, but you've given seminars as part of your course requirements, and other things. What about going back to high school as a new grad? Do you think it's appropriate to talk about achievements from high school, or should they stop at before post-secondary education?
I think if there's things that are of merit going back to high school, absolutely highlight those. If you're new into your career, you've only you're a new grad. You've only got so much that you can call upon. If you won some awards in high school, if you were involved in all kinds of extracurricular teams or clubs or things like that, that's the kind of thing employers are looking for. They're looking for well-rounded individuals. That's great if you can show a transcript with really good marks, but they may have 5 or 6 other people that are applying for the job that have really good marks.
Absolutely.
What other things can show that you've got some of the behavioral background and behavioral competencies that will make you a good employer and a good employee and a good fit for them?
Absolutely, and that's a great way to frame it. It's not just about what you've achieved, it's also about who you are and what behaviors do you demonstrate. Great point, Mike, and we'll be right back on Working in the Capital with more with Mike DAmico. Don't forget to call us with your questions at 613-728-1001. Welcome back to Working in the Capital. I'm Susan Haywood, here with Mike DAmico, President of Strategic HR Consulting Canada. And we're here to take your questions at 613-728-1001 about how to get your first job out of school. Mike, before the break, we were talking about ways to get experience, and we mentioned volunteering. What are some other creative ways that people can get volunteer experience in the city? For example, Blues Fest is coming up next month. How would an employer look at a resume outlining, volunteer experience I had at Blues Fest?
Any volunteer experience is an opportunity for you to get something on your resume